So my name is Marissa, and I'm going to show you today how to make this lovely bracelet. I'm going to be using one needle, and it's very easy. Each step is going to be each step is going to be very easy. So even if you're a beginner, you should be able to do this without any problem. And I'm using one needle. I have about Now, since I'm working on a very small area here, I have about 2.5 feet of thread on my needle, but since you are going to be using one needle, it is best to not use such a humongous piece of thread anyway. So I would recommend about a 3-foot piece of thread. And you are going to have to add thread anyway as you move along the project. And I am using the Dragon Thread size 6 in color blue. And I'm using the blue because I'm going to be using a lot of greens and blues, bronze seed beads, so the blue should work just nicely. So it's a size 6 Dragon Thread blue. Okay. And for my first pass, we're going to be using only our disc duos, our half tilas, and our 11 seed beads. And again, this is for our first pass. So our first pass is going to be very, very easy. So again, I have a stop bead. You can do this with 2 needles also. So I'm going to start with a tila, and then I'm going to pick up an 11 a disc duo, and you do want to make sure that you have holes that are not clogged up. That way you won't have a problem with them when you're coming back to use the other hole of your disc duo. All right. So I have a half tila, an 11 and a disc duo, and I'm going to do again an 11 a tila, half tila. If I say tila, I mean half tila. So half tila, 11 disc duo, 11 half tila, 11 disc duo, 11 half tila. So this is our pattern. It's going to be our disc duos separated by a grouping of 11 half tila, 11. So again, and we are starting with a tila because I want to be able to do my clasp off the tila. I want the tila to be the ending bead because, well, that's how I'm doing it because that's how I like it. So I am starting with a half tila, and again, it's going to be our disc duos separated by a grouping of 11 half tila, 11 disc duo, 11 half tila, 11 disc duo, 11 half tila, 11 disc duo, 11 half tila, 11. Okay, so I went in ahead and I put a few more beads. So this is what I have. So the only one that should not have an 11 before the tila, half tila, is your beginning tila. Well, I do have an 11, but that's my stop bead, so that is not part of my project. All right, so I am going to do a total of 14 disc duos, and again, they're going to be separated by this grouping of 11 half tila, 11. And that should fit my wrist. On this one, I did 15 disc duos, and it was too big for me. So I'm going to do 14 disc duos for this bracelet. So I think for this project, you will need anywhere from 14 to 16, maybe 17 disc duos. All right, so go ahead and take your needle down and do this, and then we'll come back and we'll take our needle down the other side, and I will do that with you. Okay, I've added all 14 of my disc duos, and I'm just double checking, making sure that I have not left out any beads like any 11-ohs, and it looks good. And I again started with a half tila, ending with a half tila. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take my needle, and I'm coming out of my half tila over here, and then I'm just going to go down this hole of my half tila, and I'm going to go down my bracelet. And I'm going to be adding 11-ohs because our disc duos are already there, our half tilas are already there. The only thing we need to do is add our 11-ohs. So coming down my bracelet, and I'm coming out of my half tila, I'm going to go through my disc duo. And once I'm coming out of my disc duo, I'm going to have to add an 11-oh again. And then going down my tila, or half tila, I'm going to be adding an 11-oh again. So that's what you're doing now. So we're just coming down the other side and adding 11-ohs everywhere, well, in between our beads. So I'm just going down everything. So again, very easy step, nothing to it. So go ahead, and I do need to hold it. It is easier. It is easier for me when I hold this in my hand. So I'm going to go down the rest of my bracelet, adding my 11-ohs, and I'm going to do that off camera. So, but you got it. You know what you got to do. And after this step, I will meet you back and I will show you what we do next. Okay, so I came down the other side of my bracelet and I added my 11-ohs. And your bracelet might want to curve all weird. Just lay your fingers on it like that and just kind of straighten it out. And it'll straighten out, okay? So as long as the curve isn't like really bad, you'll be okay. And if you just do that a bit, it'll be fine. And see, like mine is still not laying perfect. It's fine, it'll still work. All right. And but if you're worried about your tension, you can use two needles and you won't even have to worry about that. Okay. As long as when you're working with two needles, you don't get too up ahead on one side. You kind of do a couple on one side and then you work with your other needle and you move up a couple and then so forth, you know, like that. I hope you know what I meant. Anyway, so now I'm coming out at the end here out of my tila, and now we're going to be working with our 15-ohs, our 11-ohs again. We're not going to use very many though, but our 11-ohs again, and our 8-ohs. So coming out of my tila, again, I'm going to just, coming out of this side, I'm just going to hop on over to the other side, and I am going to sew through, the disc duo also, okay? So coming out of my tila, I'm going to go through the other hole of my tila. I'm going to sew through this 11-oh and through the disc duo. And I'm going to come out of my disc duo and I'm going to add 2 15-ohs, an 11-oh, and 2 15-ohs on my needle. So on my needle, I have 5 beads. They are 2 15-ohs, an 11-oh, and 2 15-ohs. And then what I'm going to do is circle around and go through that same disc duo again to set those beads on top, and then I'm going to catch my 11-oh after my disc duo and also my tila, half tila. So that'll decorate the outside of my disc duo. So coming out of my 8/0, I'm going to pick up an 8. Coming out of my half Tila, I'm going to pick up an 8/0, and then I'm going to go through the half Tila again, through the 11/0 after my half Tila, and to my next disc duo, coming out of my disc duo. So what we did is we just decorated the outside of our disc duo with 2 15/0s, an 11/0, and 2 15/0s. Then I went through my disc duo again, went through my 11/0, my half Tila, came out of my half Tila, and I put on an 8/0, and then I went through my half Tila, and then I went through the 11/0 after it, the disc duo, and now I'm ready to do that again. And I have to say, I love this color of half Tilas with this disc duo. I think it looks so pretty just on its own. I think just this on its own looks pretty. Maybe making it into a 3-strand wrap. Did that make sense? 3 strands, like where it goes over your wrist, you know, 3 times. Okay, so coming out of my disc duo, again goes 2 15/0s, an 11/0, and 2 15/0s. So I have a total of 5 beads on my needle. Gonna circle around, go through my disc duo, gonna go through the 11/0 after it and the half Tila. So that puts those beads there in place. Now up here above my half Tila, I need to put on an 8/0. Go through the half Tila and the 11/0 after it and my next disc duo. All right, so this is your next step, where you're decorating the outside of your disc duos and putting on an 8/0 on the outside of your half Tilas also. So do this all the way down your bracelet, and then you need to come, once you're at the end, you're going to hop on over to your other side by just hopping onto the other hole of your Tila and then going down, and then you're going to do the same side on the other side, okay? And I did not put an 8/0 on my starting Tila or on my ending Tila. If you want to, you can, but I did not do that, and I like the look of it. So I'm going to do the same thing with this bracelet, okay? So I will meet you back. Okay, so I finished adding all of my little 15/0s with the little 11/0s and my little 8/0s here, and this is what I have. Okay, so now I'm coming out at the end of my Tila again, and now what we're going to do is we're going to sew straight down the bracelet, adding some more beads, but we're not going to be like circling around anymore. We're just going to be sewing straight down. So I need to hop on over to the other, I'm coming out of this hole. I need to hop on over to this hole in my Tila and go through that 11/0 after it. And then we're just going to go up this grouping of 2 15/0s and then come out of the 11/0, and we're just going to add a picot. So that's going to be an 11/0, a 15/0, and an 11/0, okay? So coming out of this 11/0 here from my grouping of my previous step, I have an 11/0, a 15/0, and an 11/0. And then, okay, well, I am going to circle around this 11/0. Okay, so I said we weren't going to circle around, but we are. But we're only going to be circling around the middle 11/0s here of these groupings. So I'm circling around, going through that 11/0, and then going through the 2 15/0s after it. And then we're also going to catch this 11/0 after that. And then we're also going to go through our Tila and out of this 11/0 here. out of that 11-0, and we need to sew through up these two 15-0s all the way till we come out of that 11-0. And if you don't want to go through the tila, you can go through the 8-0 after this 11-0 here. You can go through the 8-0. I'm going through the tila. I did it both ways on my sample piece, and it worked. There was no difference. It didn't do anything to my project. Like, it didn't mess it up or anything. So I'm coming out of that middle 11-0. And now, again, we're going to add our little picot of 11-0, 15-0, and 11-0, circling around this 11-0 here, sewing through the 15-0s after it. And just fix your little picot. And then I'm going to sew through, I'm going to sew through this 11-0 after those 15-0s, through my tila, and then up this, and then up that 11-0 after my tila. And then again, I'm going to sew up through these 15-0s, come out of this 11-0, do my picot again, sew down this 15-0s, these two 15-0s, down this 11-0, through my tila, and up till I come out of this 11-0 here from this grouping. Or like I said, you can also, from this 11-0 here, hop on up to this 8-0 and then go through this 11-0 here and then continue. So go ahead and finish adding your picots, and then we will add our clasp, and then we will do our final step. Okay, so I already added all of my picots on both sides of my bracelet, and I'm coming out of my tila bead, and I'm going to add one part of my clasp. Well, I'm doing a toggle clasp, so I'm going to go ahead and add this part, and I'm coming out of my tila. I'm going to pick up an 11-0, well, two 11-0s, and then I'm just going to go through my clasp, and then I'm going to go through my first 11-0 after my clasp, and I'm just going to hold on to everything and pull. Then I'm going to pick up one more 11-0. I'm going to go through my other hole of my tila, and then I am going to come back up the hole of, up the other hole of my tila again, just so I can, well, actually no, I'm going to reinforce on my last step, so I'm not going to reinforce right now. You can, if you want, by hopping back up to this side of your tila again, going through these beads, going through the toggle or whatever clasp you're using, and then going back down. But you actually don't have to. You can do that at when you're on our last and final step. So I'm just gonna go out. I'm just coming out of my tila for now. So now what we need to do is we need to go through our we need to be coming out of our picot, out of this 11-0 seed bead, coming out this way toward, like not up that seed bead, but down or towards the project. So in order to do that, I'm coming out of my tila, and I'm just gonna go through this disc duo and only the disc duo, and then I'm going to sew up. I'm gonna ignore this 11-0 after my disc duo. I'm gonna sew up these two 15-0s so I can get myself in place. I'm gonna go through this 11-0, so up the two 15-0s, the 11-0, and then I'm just gonna make my way to that 11-0 where I need to be coming out of. So I'm gonna go up this one, and then I'm gonna skip the 15-0, and then I'm gonna go down this 11-0. So again, I'm skipping this 15-0, and I'm going to pull tight so it'll make my 15-0 stand up straight or straighter. Okay, so now that I'm coming out, now I'm in place, and I'm going to, so you should be coming out of this 11-0 here in a downward motion or towards your project. So I'm coming out here, and now here's where I'm going to add my 2mm crystals. So I'm going to try it out with these. If I don't like this color, then I'll switch out the color. So picking up a 2mm, going through your your 8-0, and then once you're coming out of your 8-0, you're going to pick up another 2mm. You're going to go up this 11-0 from your picot. Then you're going to skip the 15-0 after that. Sorry. You're going to skip this little 15-0 here, and you're just going to go down the 11-0 after it. And give it a good tight pull. That way that'll make your 15-0 stand up straight. Okay? So there. I'm putting in my 2mm. So I'm coming out of that 11-0. Now I'm going to go through my 8-0. And then after the 8-0, I'm going to pick up a 2mm again. And my string is getting caught everywhere. I'm going to pick up my 2mm again. And then I'm going to skip, I'm going to go through this 11-0 from my picot. I'm going to skip the 15-0. And I'm going to sew straight down the 11-0 after the 15-0. From here, I'm going to pick up my 2mm, and I'm going to sew through my 8-0. So go ahead and do the rest of your embellishing down one side, and then continue on the other side, adding the other part of your clasp, and I will meet you back after we're done and we will look at our bracelet together. Okay, so here's my finished piece. I finished adding all of my crystals, and I added the other part of my clasp. And when you add the second part of your clasp, you do need to reinforce it at that time, because you're not going to go back. You're not going to go back to that end. So, I mean, unless you want to, you can sew through your bracelet again if you like. But again, when you put your second part, since you don't need to sew back up to that side, it's best to reinforce it when you add your second part. And then when you come back down the other side of your bracelet, you're going to meet the first part of your clasp, and you can reinforce that one when you come back down. So this is what you should have, something like this. And also, when you are coming down to the end of your bracelet, when you come, let me get a needle here. When you come back, this needle is crooked, and I left my other needle at my other desk. But okay, when you're coming back, let me get closer. When you've added your last crystal here, you have to sew through this 11-0, and then you're skipping the 15-0, and then you sew through this 11-0 right on the end, and then you're going to come back this way, go through this 11-0, these two 15-0s, and then through your disc duo, and then down. And that will get you to your clasp, okay? So I didn't show that, so I just wanted to just quickly tell you how to, when you finish your one side, how to get out, okay? Also, when you're adding your crystals, you may notice that they kind of want to fold inward inward. Just fix them. Just fix them, and just fix them gently. And then as you move along your bracelet, it will tighten your crystals, and so everything will be tight and nice and sleek by the time you're done. Okay, so let me just back out. Okay, so this is what I have. You should have something like this. This is another one that I did. Similar, I think the only thing I did different on this one, and you can't see because I used just the crystal AB 2 millimeters, and on this one I used the green iris. So you can see these crystals really good. On this one, not really because of the white background, but when I put it on my hand, you can see it. Okay, so this is what you should have, something similar. And as a side note, this one I used 15 disc duos. It's kind of big on me. This one I used 14, and it's still a little big on me. So if you have a tiny wrist, you can probably do like 13 disc duos. So anywhere from 13 to 15 or 16 disc duos is what you'll need for this bracelet. And I really like it because I really wanted to make my disc duo the centerpiece, and I think I did that. So okay, so this is what you should have. I hope you enjoy making this, and thank you very, very much for watching.